The light came without warning. Was walking home from her evening taekwondo class when the sky turned white. One moment she was on a quiet street inn, thinking about what to eat for dinner. The next moment, her feet left the ground. She felt like she was falling upward, through clouds of light that burned cold against her skin. Then she hit something solid. She opened her eyes and found herself lying on a floor made of black stone. The stone was smooth like glass and cold like ice. Around her, hundreds of people were getting up, looking around with confused and frightened faces. Some were crying, some were screaming, some just stood there, unable to move or speak. Pushed herself up slowly. She was still wearing her white training uniform. Her black belt was still tied around her waist. Her feet were bare because she had been carrying her shoes in her bag when the light took her. The bag was gone now. Everything from Earth was gone except the clothes on her body. She looked up. The ceiling was so high that she could not see it. The walls stretched away in every direction, forming a space larger than any building she had ever seen. Strange lights floated in the air like small suns, casting shadows that moved in ways that made no sense. The air smelled like metal and something else, something that reminded her of lightning. A voice filled the space. It did not come from any direction. It simply appeared inside her head like a thought that was not her own. Species 7291. Designation, Human. Origin, Sol 3. You have been selected for Combat Aptitude Assessment. Looked around for the source of the voice. She saw something moving at the far end of the massive room. It was tall, maybe 5 meters high, and it seemed to be made of crystals that shifted and changed color as it moved. It had no face that she could recognize, but she felt it looking at her, looking at all of them. Those who pass will earn their world a seat in the collective, the voice continued. Those who fail will result in your planet being deemed a threat. Your planet will be sterilized. The screaming got louder. People began running in different directions, but there was nowhere to run. The walls were smooth and endless. There were no doors, no windows, no way out. Did not run. She stood very still and focused on her breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow and steady. This was what her father had taught her before every competition. When fear comes, let it pass through you like water. Do not hold it. Do not fight it, just breathe. The crystal being raised what might have been an arm. The floor beneath the humans began to glow, and suddenly weapons appeared in front of each person. Guns that glowed with strange light. Swords that hummed with energy. Hammers that crackled with electricity. Hundreds of weapons, one for each human. People grabbed them desperately. A man near picked up a glowing rifle and held it against his chest like a child holding a toy. A woman grabbed 2 energy swords, one in each hand, even though she clearly had no idea how to use them. Looked at the weapon in front of her. It was a pistol of some kind, made of a material that looked like silver but felt wrong when she reached toward it. She stopped her hand before touching it. Something felt off. She had spent her whole life learning to fight. 20 years of taekwondo. Her body knew how to move, how to strike, how to defend. That knowledge was written into her muscles, her bones, her blood. It was part of her in a way that no tool could ever be. She pulled her hand back and let it fall to her side. The crystal being seemed to notice. She felt its attention focus on her, sharp and cold like a needle pressing against her mind. Contestant 227, you have not selected a weapon. I do not need one, said. The words came out calm and clear. She surprised herself with how steady her voice was. Around her, people stopped panicking long enough to look at her. Some of them thought she was crazy. Some of them thought she was brave. Most of them were too scared to think anything at all. The being was silent for a moment. Then the voice returned, but it was different this time. It was not the crystal being speaking. It was something else, something older and stranger, woven into the very walls of this place. Anomaly detected. Contestant 227 has refused weapon allocation. Logging exception. Combat assessment will proceed with current parameters. Felt the floor shift beneath her feet. Walls began rising from the ground, separating the humans from each other. She caught one last glimpse of the other people, their frightened faces disappearing behind black stone before she was alone in a small chamber. The air grew thick with silence. Then a door opened in the wall across from her, and something walked through. It was a machine, but it moved like an animal, 3 meters tall, covered in plates of armor that shifted and adjusted as it moved. 4 arms ending in blades that vibrated so fast they blurred. A single red eye in the center of its head, focused directly on her. Combat test initiated, the voice announced. Survive. The machine attacked. Moved. Her father used to say that fighting was not about strength. It was about seeing the attack before it came, seeing the opening before it appeared, seeing the moment when an enemy was committed to a movement and could not change direction. She saw the blade coming and she was not there when it arrived. Her body dropped low, sliding across the smooth floor, passing beneath the machine's first strike. Her eyes were already finding the weak points, the places where the armor plates met, where the joints connected, where a precise hit could do real damage. Her palm struck the machine's knee, not hard but perfectly placed. She felt something break inside it, felt the spray of fluid against her hand. The machine stumbled. Was already spinning, already rising, her heel coming up in an arc that ended against the red eye in the machine's head. Glass shattered, the machine fell. Somewhere far above her, in a room she could not see, something watched, and for the first time in 10,000 years, it felt something close to fear. The machine lay broken at its feet. Oil and strange fluids leaked from its joints, spreading across the black stone floor in pools that reflected the floating lights above. She stood over it, breathing hard but steady, her hands still raised in the fighting stance that her body knew better than walking. The voice spoke again, filling her small chamber. Contestant 227, first trial complete. Time elapsed 4 seconds. Weapon usage none. Efficiency rating calculating. There was a pause. Used the time to check her body. Her palm was bruised where she had struck the machine's knee. Her heel was sore from the impact against its head. Small prices. She had paid worse in training. Efficiency rating 340% above species baseline. Anomaly confirmed. Advancing to second trial. The walls around her shifted. The chamber grew larger and 3 more doors opened. 3 more machines walked through, each one identical to the first. 4 blade arms, red eye, armor that seemed to learn and adapt. Did not wait for them to attack. She ran toward the closest one, her bare feet silent on the stone. The machine swung 2 of its blades in a crossing pattern meant to cut her in half. She jumped, tucking her knees to her chest, passing through the gap between the blades with centimeters to spare. Her foot came down on the machine's shoulder, and she used it as a platform to launch herself higher. For a moment she was in the air above all 3 machines. Time seemed to slow. She could see everything clearly, the way she always could when her body was in motion. The positions of each enemy, the angles of attack, the path she needed to take. She came down on the second machine with her elbow driving into the joint where its head met its body. The impact made a sound like breaking ice. The machine's head twisted sideways, its red eye flickering and dying. She hit the ground rolling, came up beneath the third machine, and drove her knee into the soft spot where its leg connected to its hip. The leg gave way. The machine fell forward. She caught its falling head with her hands and twisted with all her strength. Metal screamed, the head came off. The first machine had recovered and was coming at her from behind. She could hear its blade arms cutting through the air. She dropped flat to the floor, felt the blades pass over her back close enough to touch her hair, then swept her leg around in a circle that knocked the machine off its feet. Before it could stand, she was on top of it. Her fingers found the gap in its chest armor, the place where the plates met. She pulled, metal bent. She reached inside and grabbed whatever she found there. Wires, tubes, things that pulsed with energy. She pulled. The machine stopped moving. Stood up slowly. Her hands were cut now, bleeding from the sharp edges of the metal she had torn apart. Her breathing was heavy, but she was alive and the machines were not. Second trial complete. Time elapsed 11 seconds, 3 opponents eliminated, weapon usage none. Far above the arena, in an observation room filled with screens and floating displays, Admiral watched the woman in white destroy everything sent against her. He was an old man now, his hair gray and his face lined with years of service to masters he had not chosen. The collective had taken him from Earth 40 years ago, one of the first humans ever tested. He had survived by being useful, by learning their systems, by becoming something between a servant and an advisor. In all those years, he had never seen anything like this. "Who is she?" he asked the air. The system answered him. It always answered. Contestant 227, name, age, 28 Earth years, occupation, martial arts instructor, no military training, no combat experience outside of sporting competition. No combat experience, repeated. He watched as the walls in his chamber shifted again, as 5 more machines emerged from new doors. He watched as she moved to meet them with the same calm, focused energy as before. Then what do you call what she is doing? Unknown, the system admitted. Human combat doctrine does not match any recorded template. Their fighting styles appear to be recreational in origin but lethal in application. Further study is required. Laughed. It was a bitter sound. He had spent 40 years trying to explain humanity to the collective, trying to make them understand that humans were not like other species. They did not evolve to use tools. They evolved to be tools. Every part of the human body was a weapon waiting to be used. Hands that could grip and crush. Legs that could kick through walls. Minds that could find the weakness in any enemy. The collective had never believed him. They looked at humanity's primitive technology, their small planet, their short history among the stars, and they saw nothing to fear. Now they were watching a woman in a white uniform tear apart their testing machines with her bare hands. How many others? Asked. How many other humans are showing this level of combat ability? The system processed for a moment. 17 humans have destroyed their first opponent. 9 have refused weapons. 3 have achieved efficiency ratings above species baseline. Only 3. Only 3. The system paused. So far, the trials have only begun. Watched as finished the last of the 5 machines. She was hurt now, limping slightly, blood on her uniform but still standing, still fighting. The collective thinks this test is to see if humans are worthy of joining them, said quietly. They do not understand what they have started. Clarify, the system requested. Smiled, showing teeth. Humans do not take tests, we survive them, and then we remember who made us take them. In her chamber far below, looked up at the ceiling. She could not see the observers, but she knew they were there. She could feel them watching. She wiped the blood from her hands and waited for the next trial. News traveled fast in the collective. Before had finished her 5th trial, every species within 1,000 light-years knew about the humans. Screens across 1,000,000 worlds showed the same images. A small woman in white clothing, walking through destruction she had created with nothing but her body. Machines built to kill the deadliest creatures in the galaxy, lying in pieces at her feet. And she was not alone. In observation galleries surrounding the great arena, representatives of 100 different species watched the human trials with growing unease. They had seen many species tested before. They knew how it was supposed to work. The creatures would grab the weapons. They would fight with whatever tools they were given. They would win or lose based on how well they could point and shoot, swing and block. The humans were not following the pattern. was a large man with a shaved head and scars on his knuckles from years of fighting in cages back on Earth. He had been a professional fighter, one of the best in Korea, before the light took him. When the machines came for him, he picked up the plasma rifle the system had offered. Then he broke it over the first machine's head. The observers watched in confusion as he pulled apart the broken weapon and wrapped the pieces around his fists. They watched as he moved through machine after machine, his fists cracking armor like eggs, his feet sweeping legs out from under bodies that weighed 10 times what he did. He did not fight like someone using a weapon. He fought like someone who was the weapon, and the broken rifle was just decoration. "What is he doing?" asked a representative from the Dominion, a species that had evolved without arms and relied entirely on projectile weapons. "Why does he not use the plasma function?" "He does not know how," another observer answered. This one was from a species that looked like insects with many eyes and many legs. "He does not care. Watch his body. Every movement is trained, practiced. This is not instinct. This is skill." "Skill for what purpose? Their planet has no predators that require this level of combat ability." "You are wrong," a third voice said. It was Admiral, standing in the shadows at the back of the observation gallery. The alien representatives turned to look at him with various expressions of surprise and interest. Humans were rarely allowed in these spaces. Earth has many predators. The most dangerous one is us. He walked forward, pointing at the screens showing the human trials. "You see breaking machines with his hands. On Earth, he would fight other humans in a cage while thousands watched and cheered. You see that woman there?" He pointed at another screen, where a thin woman with short hair was using a piece of wire to destroy machines 3 times her size. "Her name is, she was a soldier. She has killed before, not machines, people." The gallery went silent. "You do not understand what you are looking at," continued. "You see a primitive species with primitive technology. You think we are weak because we have not spread across the stars. But the reason we have not spread is because we have been too busy fighting each other. Every generation, every century, endless war. We have been sharpening ourselves against each other for 1,000,000 years." On the screens, finished her 7th trial. She had now defeated 35 machines without using a single weapon. Her efficiency rating had stopped being calculated because the system had no scale large enough to measure it. "The system keeps offering her weapons," one of the observers noted. "She keeps refusing. Why?" Smiled. "Because she does not need them. Because her body is already a weapon that has been perfected over millions of years of evolution, a weapon that can run for days without rest, a weapon that can throw objects with deadly accuracy, a weapon that can survive wounds that would kill most species in this collective." He paused, letting his words settle into the minds of the beings around him. "And you brought 500 of these weapons to the heart of your testing facility. You put them in an arena designed to make them fight for their survival. You told them that their entire planet will die if they fail." He laughed. "You could not have created a more dangerous situation if you tried." The system's voice interrupted the conversation. It spoke to everyone in the gallery at once, its tone flatter than usual. "Alert! Human combat performance is exceeding all projections. Current survival rate, 87%. Expected survival rate, 3%. Reassessing species classification." The observers began talking over each other in various languages, their voices mixing into a noise that filled the gallery like a storm. Some were afraid. Some were angry. Some were simply confused. But watched the screens in silence. He watched stand alone in her chamber, waiting for the next trial. He watched pick up a fallen machine and throw it at another one, using an enemy as a weapon against its allies. He watched build a trap from broken parts, luring machines into positions where they destroyed each other. He had waited 40 years for this moment. 40 years of watching his species be dismissed as primitive. 40 years of knowing what humanity really was and being unable to prove it. Now the collective was learning. On the main screen, the system displayed a new message: Final trial preparation in progress. Remaining contestants, 87. Champion class opponents selected. The gallery went silent again. Everyone knew what that meant. The champion class was the final test, the ultimate challenge. A creature so dangerous that it had ended 341 species evaluations without ever losing. Looked at the remaining humans on the screens. 87 people who had survived everything the collective had thrown at them. 87 weapons forged on a planet of endless war. This is where it ends, one of the observers said. The champion will destroy them, it always does. Maybe, said, or maybe this is where something new begins. In her chamber far below, felt the walls beginning to move again. But this time, they were not creating a new trial space. They were opening up, connecting her chamber to all the others, bringing the surviving humans together for the first time since the tests began. She saw across the expanding space, his face bloody but grinning. She saw, calm and focused, already looking for exits and angles. She saw dozens of others, strangers who had become survivors, all of them looking at each other with the same thought in their eyes. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The 87 survivors stood together in the center of the arena. The walls had pulled back, revealing a space so large that the floating lights above looked like distant stars. The black stone floor stretched in every direction, smooth and cold beneath their bare and bloodied feet. They looked at each other in silence. Some were injured badly, holding broken arms or limping on damaged legs. Some were barely touched, their skills or their luck keeping them whole through the trials. But all of them had the same look in their eyes, the look of people who had been tested and had refused to fail. Moved through the crowd, checking on those who were hurt. She did not know their names, but she knew their faces now. She knew which ones had fought with weapons and which ones had fought without. She knew which ones were soldiers and which ones were ordinary people who had found something extraordinary inside themselves when death came calling. "Can you stand?" she asked a young man who was sitting on the ground, his leg bent at a bad angle. "I can stand," he said. His voice was tight with pain, but his eyes were clear. "I can fight." She nodded and helped him up. Around her, others were doing the same, was tearing strips from his shirt to make bandages for a woman with cuts on her arms, was organizing the survivors into groups, putting the strongest at the front and the injured in the middle. No one had told them to do this. No one had given orders, but they moved together like they had trained together their whole lives. This was what humans did. When danger came, they formed groups. They protected each other. They fought as one. Admiral's voice crackled through the arena, coming from speakers hidden somewhere in the walls. "Survivors of Earth, I am the human representative to the collective. I need to tell you what is coming." Everyone stopped moving. Everyone listened. "The final trial is different from the others. You will face a champion-class opponent, a creature that has killed every species that has ever faced it. 341 species. Millions of individuals all dead." He paused. "I am telling you this because you deserve to know the truth. You can surrender. If you do, Earth will be placed under quarantine, not destroyed, just contained. You can live out your lives on our planet, cut off from the galaxy forever." Silence filled the arena. Then laughed. It was a big, loud sound that echoed off the distant walls. "Contained, like animals in a zoo." "Like prisoners," said quietly, "forever." Stepped forward, looking up at the ceiling where she knew the observers were watching. "We did not come here by choice. We were taken from our homes, our families, our lives. We were thrown into this arena and told to fight or watch our world die." Her voice was calm but hard, like steel wrapped in silk. "We fought. We survived. And now you want us to give up, to spend the rest of our lives knowing we had a chance and did not take it." She shook her head. "No, we fight." Around her, the other survivors began to nod. Some raised their fists. Some just stood a little, their shoulders squaring, their chins lifting. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I knew you would say that. I am proud of you, all of you." The floor began to shake. At the far end of the arena, a door opened. It was not like the other doors. This one was massive, large enough to fit a building through, and through it came something that made the testing machines look like toys. The champion was called the Silence. It had no species name because it had killed everyone who tried to name it. 12 meters tall, 4 legs like pillars of muscle and bone, a body covered in plates of chitin that looked harder than any armor, arms that ended in claws as long as swords, and a head filled with teeth, so many teeth that its mouth seemed to go on forever. It made no sound as it walked into the arena. That was how it got its name. It moved without noise, killed without warning, and left nothing behind but silence. The survivors looked at it. Some of them took a step back. Some of them gripped their weapons, but none of them ran. Studied the creature. It was big. Bigger than anything she had ever fought, but big things were slow. Big things had weak points. Big things could be hurt. "In Korea," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "we have a saying, a problem shared is a problem halved." She looked at the other survivors. 87 people, 87 weapons. 87 of us, one of it, she smiled. "I like those odds." The Silence charged. It moved faster than something that big should be able to move. One moment it was at the far end of the arena. The next moment it was among them, its claws sweeping through the air, its body crashing through the crowd like a wave through sand. People scattered, people screamed, people died. But people also fought. Grabbed one of the creature's claws as it passed him and held on. His muscles bulged. His feet dragged across the stone, but he did not let go. He slowed it down just enough for others to move. Threw something at the creature's eyes. Did not see what it was, but the creature flinched, its head turning away for just a moment. A moment was enough. Ran, not away from the creature, but toward it. She used back as a platform, jumping onto the creature's leg, then its body, then climbing higher. Her fingers found gaps in the chitin armor. Her feet found places to push. She moved like water flowing upward, impossible and unstoppable. The creature tried to shake her off. She held on. It tried to grab her with its arms. She moved faster. It tried to crush her against the ground. She was already gone, higher up, closer to its head. Below her, the other humans were doing the same. They were climbing the creature, stabbing it with broken weapons, hitting it with their fists, doing anything they could to hurt it. They were working together, creating openings for each other, sacrificing positions to save allies. The creature roared, the first sound it had made in 10,000 years. Reached its head. She found the place where its skull met its spine, the place where even the biggest creatures were weak. She pulled back her knee, gathered every bit of strength she had left, and struck. The impact traveled through her whole body. She felt bones crack in her leg. She felt muscles tear in her back. But she also felt the creature's skull give way beneath her strike. The Silence fell. It hit the ground like a mountain falling, shaking the arena, throwing the humans off its body in every direction. Landed hard, pain exploding through her injured leg. But she forced herself to look up, to see what she had done. The creature was not moving. Around her, the survivors were picking themselves up. They were hurt, many of them badly, but they were alive. And the champion was dead. In the observation galleries far above, 100 species watched in silence. No one spoke. No one moved. They had seen the impossible happen. They had seen a primitive species, armed with nothing but their bodies and their will, destroy the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. The system's voice filled the arena, and for the first time it sounded almost afraid. Final trial complete. Champion defeated. Species 7291 combat assessment passed. Lay on the stone floor, looking up at the floating lights that looked like stars. Her body was broken in a dozen places, but she was smiling. They had won. The arena was quiet now. The floating lights had dimmed. casting soft shadows across the black stone floor where the survivors lay. Medical drones had appeared from hidden doors, moving among the humans with gentle precision, treating wounds that would have killed any other species. Sat with her back against the fallen body of the silence. Her leg was wrapped in something silver that numbed the pain. Her hands were covered in bandages that seemed to heal her cuts as she watched. Around her, the other survivors were being treated the same way. Some were unconscious. Some were talking quietly. All of them were alive. 43 humans had fallen in the final battle. 44 survivors remained. Sat nearby, his massive arms wrapped in the silver healing material. He had held the creature's claw long enough for dozens of others to escape. His shoulders were dislocated. His spine was cracked, but he was smiling. "We actually did it," he said. His voice was rough with exhaustion. "We killed that thing." "We did," agreed. She was lying on her back, staring up at the distant ceiling. Her body was covered in wounds, but her eyes were clear and sharp. "The question is what happens now." As if in answer, the system's voice filled the arena. But this time it was different. It was not speaking to them. It was speaking to everyone, to every species in the collective, to every world that had watched the trials. Species 7291 Combat Assessment. Complete. The floating lights brightened. Screens appeared in the air around the arena, showing the faces of observers from 100 different worlds. All of them were watching. All of them were waiting. Threat classification revised. The system paused, and in that pause felt the weight of judgment. The collective was about to decide what humanity was, what humanity would become. Previous assessment: minimal technological advancement, pre-civilization, negligible threat. Current assessment: apex predator species. The words hung in the air like a sentence being read at a trial. 4.7 million years of continuous combat evolution. Every individual is a self-contained weapons platform. Their bodies are optimized for endurance pursuit, precision striking, and cooperative elimination of larger prey. Physical capabilities exceed 97% of known species despite lack of natural weapons such as claws, fangs, or venom. Looked at her hands, ordinary human hands, soft skin over bone and muscle, nothing special to look at. But those hands had torn apart machines and helped bring down a creature that had killed millions. Psychological profile indicates extreme resilience under stress. Humans do not freeze when faced with mortal danger. They adapt. They cooperate. They sacrifice individual survival for group success. This behavior pattern makes them unpredictable and exceptionally dangerous in combat situations. On the screens around the arena could see the alien observers reacting. Some were backing away from their viewing platforms. Some were speaking rapidly to each other in languages she could not understand. Some were simply staring with expressions that might have been fear. Collective integration status: approved. A wave of relief passed through the surviving humans. Approved. They had passed. Earth would not be destroyed. With restrictions. The relief faded into uncertainty. Recommendation to all member species: do not engage humans in physical combat under any circumstances. Do not provoke. Do not threaten their. Do not attempt to manipulate or control their population through force. Admiral appeared at the edge of the arena, walking toward the survivors with slow, careful steps. His face was wet with tears, but he was smiling. Human representatives will be granted full diplomatic status. Human technology will be brought to collective standards within 10 standard years. Human military forces will not be deployed in collective conflicts without express consent of human leadership. Reached and helped her stand. Her legs screamed in protest, but the silver material held her weight. "The collective is afraid of us," she said quietly. "Yes," agreed, "they should be." The system continued its announcement. Final note regarding species 7291. Everyone went silent. The observers on the screens leaned forward. The survivors held their breath. Standard Evaluation Protocol provides weapons to test subjects to determine combat potential. Species 7291 demonstrated highest combat ratings with no weapons. Repeat, highest combat ratings with no weapons. The system paused again, and when it spoke next, its voice carried something that sounded almost like wonder. Conclusion: Earth does not need weapons. Earth is a weapon. The humans simply forgot. Today they remembered. The screens went dark. The floating lights returned to their normal brightness. The announcement was over. But the galaxy had changed. Admiral stood before the survivors, looking at each of them in turn. These were the first humans to prove what humanity could do. The first to show the collective that the small, primitive species from the third planet of an unremarkable star was something special, something dangerous, something worthy of respect. "The collective will want to speak with you," he said. "They will want to study you, learn from you, understand how you did what you did. You will become the most important humans in history." Shook her head slowly. "I do not want to be important. I want to go home." Nodded. "You will. All of you will. The collective has already agreed to return you to Earth, but they want to know if there is anything you want, any gift they can give to honor what you have done." The survivors looked at each other. After everything they had been through, after all the pain and fear and death, the idea of asking for reward seemed strange. What could the collective give them that would matter? Spoke first. "I want the collective to leave Earth alone. No more taking people, no more tests. Let us develop on our own." "Agreed," said. Raised his wrapped arm. "I want to know about the 43 who died. I want their families to know they died as heroes, that they saved our entire planet." "Agreed," said again. Then everyone looked at. She was the one who had refused the weapons first, the one who had led the final charge, the one who had struck the killing blow against the silence. If anyone had earned the right to ask for something, it was her. She thought about it for a long moment. She thought about the families of the dead. She thought about the children who would grow up without parents because of what happened here. She thought about her own students back in, waiting for her to teach their next class. "I want to go home," she said finally. "I have a morning class tomorrow. My students are testing for their yellow belts. I cannot let them down." Stared at her. Then he laughed, a warm sound that filled the quiet arena. "The collective offered you anything in the galaxy," he said, "and you want to teach children how to kick." Smiled. It hurt her face, but she smiled anyway. "That is how we became what we are," she said. "One class at a time, one student at a time, teaching each other to be strong." She looked at the other survivors, at the body of the fallen champion, at the arena that had tried to break them and failed. "This is just what humans do. We teach, we learn, we survive." "And we remember," added. "Yes," agreed, "we remember." The collective had wanted to know if humanity was worthy of joining them. They had gotten their answer, but they had learned something else as well, something that would change how they viewed the galaxy forever. They had learned that somewhere on a small blue planet circling an ordinary star, there was a species that had spent millions of years turning themselves into the most efficient killers the galaxy had ever seen. And they had done it without even meaning to. Just by surviving, just by teaching each other, just by being human. Earth did not need weapons. Earth had never needed weapons. Because Earth had them. 6 months later, stood in her training hall watching her students practice their kicks. The sun was coming through the windows, warm and golden. The smell of the ocean drifted in from outside. Everything was normal. Everything was home. But sometimes, late at night, she would look up at the stars and remember. She would remember the black stone arena. She would remember the feeling of chitin cracking beneath her strike. She would remember the moment when the system had spoken those words that would echo through history. "Earth does not need weapons." She would smile, and then she would go back to teaching her students how to fight. One class at a time, one student at a time, building the weapons that Earth would always need. The humans themselves,